Welcome to the Elements of Success podcast with Johnny Dawson. This is the show that will inspire you to uncover your formula for success so you take charge of your story, overcome life's obstacles, and find fulfillment in all branches of life. With Johnny as your guide, you will break down the science of success and experiment with how you can combine key elements to uncover discipline you need to accelerate your journey towards prosperity. Now, on to today's episode.
Welcome to the Element of Success podcast, where we will explore specific traits that break down barriers between you and success. We will achieve this by bringing on guests so that they can share their stories of success. Today, we are joined by my co-host, Eric Johnson. Eric, how are you today?
Big Johnny Dawson. How are you?
Wow, that was impressive.
Thank you. I only have one button on this thing, and that's what it does. So
that's what it does?
That's what it does. That's all it does.
I need one of those buttons. That was cool.
Johnny, I'm good. How are you?
Good. I need that button when I'm waking the boys up for school. Like that was a pretty cool voice change you did.
Absolutely. You just need that echo, that really shakes them out of their beds and gets them going.
That's right. Scares them or wakes them up. Whichever one, I don't care. Just get out of bed.
You may have to do more laundry, but that's okay.
That's right. Well, today, with that grand entrance, we're actually talking about one of the words in our podcast, and that is success.
All right.
So the definition of success is the accomplishment of an aim or purpose. And I wanted to ask you first, before we kind of dove into this topic today, how would you define success, Eric?
The accomplishment of an aim. I'm just kidding. That is a great concise.
The definition?
The exact definition. I actually, mine's twofold, because I think that you have success on obviously success on multiple levels in multiple areas of your life. However, I think that I define success by two timelines. One is on a daily basis. If I can go to bed and feel like I have done the right thing, made an impact, an improvement on somebody else's life. I really try to do that for my wife and my children, my coworkers, my friends and family that I'm able to see during that day. If I can go to bed and say, I made one person's life better today in whatever that is, whether I just cheered them up or whether I did something, help them move a couch, whatever it is, that to me is a successful day. And then the long-term success definition is almost the same, where it's at the end of my days, can I look back and not necessarily be free from all regrets, because I already have some. So I've already stacked some regrets up that I'm currently trying to make up for certain things that I've done in my past. But at the end of the day, if I can say, I made my goals, I worked toward those goals, I worked to achieve those goals as best I could, even if I didn't achieve every one of them, I worked toward them without being slothful or lazy or giving up, then to me that's success.
Absolutely. I would agree with that. And as you were talking there, we've in episode 2, when we talked about fear, and I used that index card, the fear versus why, and you kind of hit on that point is if when you put your head down on your pillow at night, did you say yes to your whys, and did you improve someone else's life? Did you get 1 inch closer to whatever that why is, to whatever it is you're doing? That starts to inch towards you feeling like you're creating some true success and you're accomplishing your goals.
Yeah, I agree.
I would say I think a lot of people in today's world, and again, the last episode we just had, we spent a lot of time talking about social media, and I think that social media has really influenced a lot of people to believe that success is built around materialistic items, right? It's built around showing that you can purchase a Rolls Royce or that you can fly on a private jet. I have to laugh because I saw an Instagram page to where you could pay someone to go sit on a private jet on a tarmac just to have pictures taken in the private jet to post on your social media.
I can one up you on that. You ready?
Instagram. Yeah, let's hear it.
Well, they actually have somebody who has built a mini studio that is made to look like you're on a private jet. They don't even go to a real jet.
Oh my gosh! So it's not even a real plane. It's a studio of a fake plane.
Yes, but that's what they need to show their followers, because I'm so successful. I'm sitting in a plywood box with fake windows.
Right. That's and I think the generation, the younger generation that's coming up, that is how they are defining success.
Yeah.
Of what can I post to make me look as if I have accomplished something. TikTok's full of it. It's full of people posting about their Lamborghinis or whatever the case may be of I traded cryptocurrency or Forex or something, and this is how I bought it. A lot of the times there's more to the story than that, right? There's 9 times out of 10, there's something else that they're missing that really defined how they got to that. But all they want to show you is I made it, right? Mm-hmm. So I truly believe a lot of people in this world spend a lot of time defining success based on materialistic and luxury items that we can't take with us anywhere, right?
Yeah.
One of my favorite people to read about, in fact, our youngest son is named after him. He was the inventor of staticism. Any guesses on who that might be?
You got me. I don't.
Marcus Aurelius.
I love that name too. That's just fantastic.
Yeah, Aurelius is our youngest son's name for those that don't know, and he was named after Marcus Aurelius because I've always read about Marcus Aurelius. I loved him as a leader, and his philosophies on life really can be applicable to today. Mm-hmm. And it's eerie sometimes reading some of his stuff because you're like, did he just predict the future thousands of years later? And it's really humbling to read some of his quotes and ideas of staticism. And one that I really like, and I want to make sure I read this correctly because I don't want to misquote this, but time is like a river made up of the events which happen and a violent stream. For as soon as a thing has been seen, it is carried away, and another comes in its place, and this will be carried away too. He's talking about how everything that we do in life, time is so fast-paced that as soon as something happens, we replace it with something else, and we forget about the event or the item that just occurred. Would you agree with that? Do you believe that that quote is kind of how time operates?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because to me, I know that I can forget positives in my life very quickly, and just through my own humanity, I suppose. Unfortunately, I remember the negatives longer than I do the positives. I'm looking at that next thing coming down the stream, whether that's a positive or negative. I'm looking forward to the positive things. If I see something negative coming down, I'm going to do my best to avoid it. But I remember that, and I pay more attention to that a lot of times than I do those positive moments. So that's something I'm working on personally.
Yeah, and honestly, I think going back to episode 1 when I shared a lot of the life events that happened in my life in early childhood, living in Kentucky, etc. You might have noticed there was a reoccurring theme there, that it was all negative events, right?
Yeah, there were a lot.
There was a lot of negative events, and I honestly, if you were to ask me, like, hey, what's one great thing that you remember from your childhood, I maybe come up with one or two. Maybe it was my grandparents visiting us for a weekend or two or something of that nature. I remember my grandfather used to let me ride in the back of his truck sometimes. I thought that was really cool. So I think you're absolutely right that as time passes, we collect all of the negative things because it was more impactful to us and let go of the positive things.
Yes.
I have learned something over the past 6 to 7 weeks, though, and this is what I want to share today. What if I were to say, going back to our theme on this podcast, success, which is an accomplishment of an aim or purpose? What if true success was the ability to create your own time?
Ooh, my ears are perked. You've piqued my interest.
Again, thinking about all the people in this world that are employed by someone They devote all their time to something else, right? And the reason why I came up with this idea is actually my wife, Bora, is the one that brought it up to me. Over the past 6 weeks, since, as many of you might know by now, my wife, Bora, had a major brain operation to remove a tumor 6 weeks ago. It was probably one of the scariest times outside of my life, fearing for another individual's life outside of being in combat in Iraq.
Yeah.
And a lot of those emotions came back of concern, of stress, of is this surgery going to be successful? She had a very high risk of waking up and being deaf in 1 year. She had a very high risk of having facial paralysis the rest of her life. The tumor was attached to both of those nerves. To remove the tumor, a lot of the surgeons had to cut through what's called her vestibular nerve, which is her balance nerve. So your brain has two vestibular nerves on each side. Once one's cut, the brain's trying to talk to that nerve, and that's really what allows you to walk and balance. Well, she couldn't walk after she woke up. She had no idea how to walk. So imagine waking up and being like, I've done this for 30-some years, and now I don't even know how to walk. So she had to spend a lot of time rehabbing. And I think a lot of people in today's world might have struggled with that ability to devote time to help her with the recovery with such an invasive surgery. A lot of companies, they'll give you 1 week off for the year and then say, well, it's your own time now. You got to go do your own thing, and it's unpaid, right? And I think a lot of people are fearful of creating time. But what I've realized through this experience is I think true success is the ability to create your own time. And now that her and I both own businesses, I was able to stay home with her the entire time. All 6 weeks, I've been right by her side every day. In fact, this is one of the only maybe 2 to 3 days that I've even been in the office. And that's really so that we could do this podcast. And we rehab 3 times a day. I practice walking with her every single day, and she has completely had to relearn how to walk and balance herself. She was so defeated that first week after the operation. She just was depressed. In fact, 1 week after the surgery, her largest fear was facial paralysis. Mm-hmm. And I that's every woman's fear. Half of my face is paralyzed for the rest of my life. That's a real fear she had. And she developed facial paralysis 1 week to the day after her surgery. And the surgeons really couldn't give us an answer. They said, well, it could be back in 6 months. It could be back in a year. If it goes longer than 6 months, I'm sorry, but it may be permanent at that point. Her face is back to 90% where it was prior to surgery. So the facial paralysis is cleared. Her progress has been truly amazing. The surgeons and her therapist said that she may not be able to walk again until Christmas, which is another 2 to 3 months from now. She's already walking on her own now, which is what allowed me to feel comfortable to even come to the office today.
Yeah.
Which is, it gives me chills just thinking about it, but that is a miracle in itself.
Well, I told you that I got on TikTok just a couple days ago when you posted the video of her walking into the hospital. Was it the hospital or the rehab center she was walking into?
No, it was in the hospital. And usually, so to give you kind of the backstory on that, so that video, for those that don't know, it's posted on my TikTok at johnny.wayne, my TikTok handle, and it's got 2.2 million views right now, hundreds of thousands of likes, etc. The reason why that video even happened was the hospital wouldn't allow me to go upstairs with her to the appointment. I had to go sit outside because of COVID. And she hasn't walked anywhere without me by her side. She either holds my arm or I help balance her. This was her walking away from me to the elevators was really the first time that she walked on her own without either me assisting her having a walker, her having a cane, or a wall to lean on. So those steps that you watched, that was real. That was raw. That was her afraid to walk to get to the elevators because they literally would not allow me to go up with her. And in fact, they asked us several times, would you want me to put you in a wheelchair? We'll take you up in a wheelchair. And she said, no, I committed to walking to my appointment. I told my husband that the next time I come into this hospital, I'm walking. And that was 6 weeks to the day she walked back in to the hospital after having a massive brain surgery. Truly incredible. Her story has been shared in front of millions of people. In fact, Ohio State Wexner Medical Center, the hospital that we had the surgery, they've since then reached out to her, and they're wanting to ask for permission to share her story to start inspiring others to get over their rehab hurdles and whatever sense of depression and feeling defeated that they may have, which is also truly incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. It was stunning. I mean, to watch. So I encourage everybody to go and check it out on TikTok. He's shared so much there. I know that Bora has her own. I don't know if we want to share that on this podcast right now, but maybe if people contact you, they can also get a hold of Bora's TikTok.
Absolutely.
Brought tears to my eyes. Literally, I have no shame in saying I'm an emotional guy to begin with, but good Lord. Watching that was just, it really just, the tears came down my cheeks. I immediately showed my wife. I texted it to my daughter because they've both been following you and looking at that stuff. And man, it was truly inspirational.
Yeah, it really is. And it's funny because I had people question us, and once you go viral on something, you get a lot of bad. You just get bad.
Oh yeah,
you get bad apples, right?
The trolls.
You got people. Yeah, they're trolls, and some of the trolls were, well, why would God give her a tumor in the first place? And well, if God gave her a tumor, why couldn't He remove it? And it reminded me of the fact that we don't know that answer, right? Mm-hmm. We don't have the ability to comprehend why. But what we do have the ability to do is use what has been given to us to help other people. And I think that's kind of the message that Bora and I have both trying to display is if she helps one person get to a place in their life where they feel a little bit more comfortable after having a back surgery or hip surgery or a brain surgery, if they see her video and they say, wow, if she can go through that, I can go through it and with the same outcome. And we may never know that person, but at the end of the day, I think that's her purpose of why we began to even share her story. To get back, to kind of reel it back here, Bora had mentioned to me, a week or so ago, she said, I believe that my rehab outside of our faith and prayers, etc., she believes that the rehab has been so successful because I was at a point in our business and my business that I could completely step away for 6 weeks and create time aimed at a purpose to only help her.
Yeah.
That has been my sole purpose over the past 6 weeks. And if I wasn't in a position within my business and the practice that I own to take that 6 weeks away, where would she be now in her rehab, right? Where would our stress levels be? So that's what made me start thinking that maybe we're missing what true success is. Steve Jobs, before he passed away, said something along the lines of, it doesn't matter how much money I have, I can never buy more time.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think that's true.
100%, yeah.
We can never, it doesn't matter all the materialistic things that you collect on this planet, all of it's never going to give you more time.
Yeah. But you've been creating time for quite a while now, right? I mean, you're talking about this one incident. Now, this is obviously 6 weeks of devoted time to be with her, pray with her, love on her, help her with the rehab. That is an amazing feat. But it's also because you've built your business, like you said, you built your business to be able to sustain itself and continue on, even if you're not there in person at that moment. But you have been creating time for years, because I know you as a father value and take extraordinary measures to make sure that you have time with your boys. and
Absolutely.
that you're being the father that they need. You're not at the office for 90 hours a week grinding so you can provide them with the latest iPad or a four-wheeler or whatever. One of the videos is you riding the four-wheelers with them, right? I mean, that's all there is to it. You're creating time because that's something you'll never get back with your children or your wife or your family or friends. Man, that's a beautiful picture.
It is, and it wouldn't be possible. And I always relate things going back to federal law enforcement because that was the avenue that I pursued, and that was my dream job. And I always compare what we're doing now to could I have done that in that position? And the answer is no. There's no way on the planet the FBI would allow me to take off 6 weeks just to go spend time with Bora and help her rehab. It just wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. You have to be mindful of the time that you spend. I try to create time with each boy. Having 4 boys makes it difficult, but I try to create time with each of them. For instance, I took Titus, our 6-year-old, hunting for the first time last night ever. He's never been, and he had an absolute blast. We just sat in a deer stand and we watched 6 deer walk by, and that was it. And he loved every second of it.
Yeah.
He was on edge the whole time. I had to tell him to be quiet about 423 times, but at
But
the
who's
end of
keeping
the day, it was a learning experience. And now it's funny because when the boys get up for school, they got to get on the bus pretty early. This is a kind of a side story. And AJ, our 2-year-old, still sleeping, and they all sleep on the same floor. And so now this morning I used it and it worked. So this is a good little test that are they learning what I'm teaching them in the deer stand. So I told them, I said, listen, guys, you have to use your deer stand voice. So they immediately started whispering like as quiet as possible. And I'm like, this is awesome because now we're not going to wake up your 2-year-old tornado brother and then, we're not going to have to deal with him this morning. So that was good. But you're absolutely right. You have to make a conscious decision to create your own time. And I feel like when people get to a certain level of success, that is when they can create their own time. So if you're listening to this and you feel like you're on this rat race of life and you're just in a wheel of, I don't have enough time, I can't figure this out, my boss is horrible, I've got to go clock in from 9 to 5 or 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., and I got to sleep all day, and I got to get up, and I see the kids, or I see my wife or my husband a couple times, and then I got to get back on that wheel. I would ask you, have you thought about what you could do to try to create more time in your life? Is there something that you've always wanted to do, but for whatever reason, you just don't have the means, or you haven't figured it out, or you haven't tried to do it, or you're afraid to do it, or your fear of failure is holding you back from doing it? If you are able to accomplish that goal, does it create more time? And maybe that's your why. Maybe your why isn't to buy something materialistic, even though you think it might be. Maybe your why should be, how do I create more time? Because once this time has passed, it's like a violent stream. When something comes along, it's replaced with something else. And that should be your objective with trying to create your success.
Johnny, I would say that one thing that people fall into, and it's a trap, it's a complete trap, is being inside their own head, right? Because as smart as we are, as innovative as we are, as strong-willed as we are, especially as business owners, you have to have that drive. I think so often anybody that's listening to this can say they get trapped in their own head and they don't know how to get out of that rat race. They don't know how to get out of that circle, that spinning wheel, if you will, the hamster wheel. Now, my suggestion, and I would love your input on this, my suggestion is that they find somebody that they can talk to about this that is outside of that realm, that they, not their spouse, because they, there's a lot of emotion involved there, but somebody outside. And I would say, you can, for business owners, a good coach or consultant is something that's very important to be able to access. However, I'm not pitching anything for any coaches out there. What I'm saying is that just having somebody, a good friend, a mentor of some kind that can help you look at your situation from an outside view, because they're not trapped in your head. You are.
Right.
So what are your thoughts on that as far as some ideas behind it?
I agree, and honestly, building the practice that I have, I've used several business coaches, especially starting out, because you will get in your own head of this isn't working, and what happens is people just don't try it long enough, right? They don't put in the work on a consistent, regular basis for enough time. Again, leveraging this time, enough time to see that success so that they can actually create time. So what's good about a coach or even a mentor is they're going to hold you accountable. They're going to say on a call or Skype or whatever the case may be, they're going to say, look, you committed to these 3 things to get better last week. Did you do them? And if you answer no, it feels pretty bad, because I've answered no on a few of those calls, and I've got to say I tried like heck the next time to get it done.
Yeah.
And so you just need an accountability partner.
Yep.
One thing, you mentioned that I love spending time with the boys, and I absolutely do. I read an article that the impression that you make on your children has to be made by the time they hit 12 years old. And I strongly believe that.
I agree 100%.
Once they get over 12 years old, you've kind of lost them. And in my mindset, what changed my perspective is I always was like, oh, they're so young, I can't really do anything with them, or the things that I want to do, like ride roller coasters and go hunting and all this other stuff, right? And then I'm like, well, 12, 13 is probably a good age to start doing that. Well, that's too late.
Yep.
Too much time has passed. They've developed their own perspectives on what they want to do, and they don't include you, right? So one thing that I did starting out, build my business, is I was devoting a ton of time. I mean, Boer will tell you I left at 5 a.m. and I didn't get home till 8, 9 p.m. As long as I accomplished my goals that week, if I accomplished everything that I set out to do, knocked on 125 doors, made 50 phone calls, had 20 appointments, whatever the case may be, if I accomplished all of that stuff by Friday at noon, and I could check the box and say, I'm done, I left the office and I went and did something with the boys. That was my reward to get everything done that week, was to go spend time with them. You want to talk about accountability? Because I've stayed till 5 o'clock on a Friday before, and when I got home and the boys being 6 and 4 years old look up at you and say, Dad, you didn't come home early today, I thought we were going to do this, that's accountability.
Oh, yeah, that's a gut shot.
You know what I mean? And I never wanted to disappoint them, so I made sure that I accomplished all those goals Monday through Friday by noon.
Yeah.
And I think that's how you start to create success, again, so that you can create your own time to do whatever it is that you want to do and spend it with whoever you want to spend it with.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't matter who you are using as an accountability partner, as long as they are willing to put in a little bit of time for you and with you.
Exactly.
It's really setting those goals to begin with. You have to desire to, like
Right.
You had that full desire to get done early so you could spend time with the boys. You have to be able to look at your goals and realize that one of your goals is spending more time with your family. Because if your main goals are to make $1 million or get that next level of car or whatever, and you don't have time spent with family as one of your goals, then it's not really going to matter. And I'm not going to sit here and put people down that only think that way, but I think at the end of the day, boy, we talked about regrets at the beginning. I think there's going to be a lot of regrets out there if people don't realize that the time that they create, like you're talking about in this podcast, the time they create is more important than anything that they could possibly purchase.
Absolutely.
You can't buy time, like you said.
Absolutely. You can't buy time. Always tell clients that there's no money in the world that can buy a second of time.
That's right.
And I share that with them because in the world that I work in, a lot of people will hoard their retirement money, millions of dollars, and they won't enjoy it. They won't spend it. And really, they don't want to pass it down, but they don't want to spend it either. So I encourage them to go do all the things that they've always wanted to do, because that time's going to go away, right?
Yep.
So Again, it's always a pleasure, Eric, doing this with you. I hope at the end of the day that we get to inspire, maybe 1, 2 people tops. I don't know if I can handle inspiring 5 people on this podcast. So
That's right.
I'm hoping that we can inspire at least 1 or 2 people. As always, feel free to link up with me on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. If you've got a question or just need some advice on just where your mindset is or whatever the case may be, never hesitate to reach out. I'm very personable. You'll figure that out. So I also have some good news too, Eric. Our first guest, I think it's only necessary for our first guest to be the one, the only, my wife, Bora.
All right.
She shares her story of perseverance through this brain operation.
Oh, man. I am so excited for that. Is that next?
Yeah, that's going to be our next episode. Okay. So we've really talked about her surgery. You're going to hear it from herself. I'm prayerful that she backs me up and says everything I've said today. If not, it's going to be an awkward moment for us. We may have to hire a counselor to come in and join us on this next podcast if she doesn't back up what I'm saying here. But I think she will. I'm very encouraged by her. She's just so inspiring with what she's been able to accomplish and her mindset. Any surgery is fearful, but to literally have your brain operated into, that's a whole nother level of scary, I think.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited for her to share her story, and I'm letting her pick out her own word that we'll define and look into for the next element of success. I'm having her kind of mow on that a little bit, and she's going to pick that out of what she feels sticks out the most through her recovery. So I'm excited about that.
Fantastic.
As always, we just want to thank you for listening to the Elements of Success. If you have not subscribed to our podcast, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when we come out with new content, it'll show up on your listening device. We would also love it if you would share that content with someone that you would like to inspire. This is Johnny Dawson, reminding you, as you look for your elements of success, you're not alone. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll talk to you again here soon.
Thank you for listening to the Elements of Success podcast. If you have not subscribed to the podcast, please click the subscribe button below. If you know anyone who would benefit from listening to this podcast, click the share button.